everyone. So today I'm going to talk about my POTS story. Sorry if I'm a little bit out of breath. I was actually just like moving stuff around, and speaking of POTS, my heart rate went up. Let's start from the beginning. Let's start from like childhood stuff. I never really thought I had POTS, maybe another like low form of dysautonomia. I always had a hard time like standing up for long periods of time. I would always like cross my legs. Always have to lean against something. Never really thought too much of those things. It was I would get a little bit dizzy if I hadn't eaten food or overexerted myself, but it was never like crazy major symptoms that were like super noticeable. Sorry for my cat. Hey, get down. And so I kind of just lived my normal life up until now I guess it was 3 years ago. 3 years ago? Yeah, I guess it was about 3 years ago. So 3 years ago, I had what we think was COVID. I never got tested, but I got a respiratory virus, some kind of respiratory virus. I was in bed for a few days, and then I woke up in the middle of the night one night, and I was just super dizzy, like the room spinning, like back when I used to drink, like I would say if I was drunk, like spinny room. Okay. So no, Sage. Sorry, cat. So it would get spinny, and I was like, what's going on? And then I just got up the next morning and my heart was really high. I could just feel it when I stood up, and I was like, that's weird. Like that doesn't feel normal to me to get like super, like my heart, like noticeably heart rate higher. So I was wearing my watch, and so I checked it, and yeah, it was high. It was like 125, 130. And that was high for me because I never really, now I have way higher heart rates, but that was really high for me. It's not normal for me. And I still just felt really dizzy, and I was like, what is going on? And I tried to rest, and every time I got up, I felt really bad. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. So I went to the ER because I had no clue what was really happening. And I got there, they did an EKG, it looked fine. I had some T-wave abnormality, but that's normal. Like I've always had that, probably because I had heart surgery. But anyway, I had that. But they're like, your EKG looks good. You know, maybe you're just dehydrated, so make sure you're eating and give you some fluids. And every time I stood up, it still felt that way. So the ER doc was like, well, let's do a, orthostatic test just to see. And so they did that, and it did jump enough to it did jump enough to be considered POTS at that point, but it wasn't an official tilt. So it was a possible POTS diagnosis, waiting on a tilt. So I went to see a new doctor because I had a PCP at that point. I didn't have insurance at that point, so I didn't have a PCP or anyone that I was really seeing frequently. So I went to see this new PCP, and it just so happened that this new PCP that I went to go see actually had POTS herself. So she was like, yeah, sounds like POTS. Do you notice this and this? What she asked me if I noticed like blood pooling or heaviness or things like that. I'm like, yeah, I guess I do. I didn't really understand POTS fully at that point. She sent me to a electrophysiologist. So I went to go see an electrophysiologist. That was when the electrophysiologist was like, let's do an echo and let's do a tilt. I was taking propranolol at the time, low dose. I didn't like it. It really dropped my blood pressure even more. And so my ears were constantly ringing, and so I ended up weaning off that even before my tilt. And also I wanted my tilt to be as accurate as possible. So I wasn't taking anything for the time of my tilt. I went in for my echo the week before my tilt. That did not go well, mainly because I had a reaction to the Lumicin that they put, like the bubble study. And that was horrible. But anyway, my echo looked good though. There's some mild tricuspid regurg, which I guess is probably normal for someone who's had a hole in their heart in the past, as well as it's not overly worrisome. So echo looked good. And so I went in for that next week for the tilt, and I did the tilt. It was not fun, but I did it, and it did show POTS. So, POTS, for sure. And, yeah, so I did the tilt, and then I went back to my PCP and my electrophysiologist. My electrophysiologist was pretty much like, well, yeah, we can't help you with anything at this point. Like, it's not an electrophysiology issue, it's a POTS issue. So she's just going to be back there. Just ignore her. We can't really do anything. See you in a year. So I was like, okay, cool. But so yeah, I stopped taking the propranolol at that point. I wasn't taking anything. And it, like, my POTS ebbs and flows for sure. Like, sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's better. Kind of just depends. So I started upping my water and everything like that, trying to up electrolytes. Sage, what you doing? What? Sorry, super distracted. Anyway. So yeah, and then my POTS story gets a little bit complicated. So my PCP, the one who has POTS, told me about this doctor in Dallas. I'm not going to say names, but was like, hey, he's great. He really helps POTS people. I think he would be an awesome fit for you if you can make it to Dallas. Dallas is about 4 to 5 hours from where I live. So I was like, okay. So we drove to Dallas and I did a week of testing with him. We did more autonomic testing. We did an MST. We did all kinds of testing in Dallas for this doctor. And then I go back in for my results and he was like, you don't have POTS. And I'm like, what? He was like, you might have some other form of dysautonomia, but it's not POTS. You don't qualify for POTS. And I'm like, I already had a tilt test that made me qualify for POTS. And keep in mind, I ebb and flow on my POTS symptoms. So I was like, well, you tested me in a colder month. Like, it was really cold in the room. Like, there's reasons why I felt that was an inaccurate tilt. And we know now that tilts can be very inaccurate and also can ebb and flow. Even my current cardiologist is like, yeah, we don't really even go by tilts much anymore, just mainly by symptoms, because they can ebb and flow depending on how the patient's feeling, all kinds of different circumstances. So he was like, you don't have POTS. And then I was like, so what do we do? And he was like, well, you're a little bit too complicated because I also have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, mast cell activation, all those things. And he was like, you're a little bit too complicated for my clinic and what I do here. And, you know, he's a clinical doctor. He does clinic studies and stuff. So he wants only the patients that he can have really good outcomes on, you know. If you know, you know. So I was like, okay, cool. He's like, I recommend going to Vanderbilt. I have yet to go to Vanderbilt. I do have an open referral with Vanderbilt. I have an appointment scheduled in February. I don't think I'm making that appointment just money-wise. I think I'll probably be going in April, probably. I'm thinking we have to push it to April, most likely. But pretty much, and then I went back to a new cardiologist, not the electrophysiologist, but an actual just cardiologist. And she did a 30-day monitor, and she was like, yeah, consistent with POTS. Your heart rate gets kind of low, gets really high, like it's consistent with POTS. She did recommend metropropolol, I think is the name of it. Sage. But I don't want to take meds right now, for many reasons. But one is because my mast cell activation is so bad right now that I'm having lots of really, really bad med reactions. And so taking a med is scary, like really, really, really scary. So I'm trying to manage POTS with IV infusions once a week. I do lactated ringers once a week, and just diet and electrolytes. That's pretty much what I'm doing currently to try to manage my POTS. And I did recently have a med reaction that caused my POTS to go in the worst flare I've ever had in my entire life. I am still coming out of that flare. It's not great, but here we are. So yeah, right now I'm at the point of waiting to go to Vanderbilt. I'm on the fence if Vanderbilt could even really help anything that I'm not already doing, especially the fact that I'm nervous about meds. So I don't know. Sorry, POTS is potsing. I have a lot of anxiety lately, and that makes my POTS even worse. And so, but I also have anxiety around taking medication, so I'm scared to take anything for anything, really, if we're being honest. So yeah, that's my basic POTS story. Now I'm just living with POTS and trying to manage the best I can without a bunch of medications, trying to manage my mast cells, and just really trying to feel human again. It's ebb and flowed these past couple years, but this last month has been the worst for my POTS it's ever been. And I'm really trying to like figure out what that looks like for me. And some days I'm not doing much, and other days I'm doing a lot more, and it just depends the day. So if you guys have any questions, I also have my EDS story already posted. My EDS story was because of my POTS story, which is funny because I probably should have done POTS before EDS, but whatever. I was still waiting for some test results when I did my EDS story, so I wanted to clarify that I do have POTS, and I do. But yeah, my EDS story rooted from POTS because I have POTS, and then I did research on EDS, and come to find out, I have it. So yeah, I don't know. I might share some mast cell activation story or anything like that. I'm not sure. I'm probably going to continue with just some days in the lives, but I hope you guys enjoy. So hit that like and subscribe. I'm trying to build this channel up not only for awareness and people feeling less alone, but also I am unable to work because of my medical conditions. So if there's any way I can start making a little bit of income off YouTube, that'd be amazing. I doubt it'll ever happen because the chronic illness community is such a niche community, but it'd be really great. But yeah, please like and subscribe, and I'll chat with you guys next time.